Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, which features interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, without further ado, I'll hand you over to your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 120. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's special guest, Amber Lilyestrom. Amber is a soul-based branding and business coach, writer, and transformational speaker. She helps entrepreneurs transform their passions into heart-centered brands and thriving businesses. She believes that the process of designing our brands can be a spiritual and life-altering experience that allows us to step fully into our power. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk branding with you today.
Yeah.
So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I worked in collegiate athletics specifically for a decade. That was my first career. I taught sport marketing at the University of New Hampshire, which is also my alma mater. So it was a beautiful place for me to grow up and learn the ropes around branding specifically. I was at the top of my field at the time that I decided to make the leap into entrepreneurship, and that all began with the birth of my daughter, becoming a mom. So for those moms who are listening, they completely understand that awakening moment in my life, which was compounded by my own life-altering experience of stopping breathing on the operating room table during her C-section. Mm-hmm. And so that was a moment for me. I had a very spiritual out-of-body experience, and I realized that what I was doing, albeit great, important things, helping students and all of that, there was something bigger that I wanted to do, and I needed to do it in my own way. And so from that moment forward, it was just, I left that operating room knowing that I had to do something. And it took some time, admittedly, obviously I was now a new mom and tackling the challenges of that. But so I went back to work in December of that year. My daughter was born at the end of August. And by, what month was it? End of April 2014, I had given my notice, and I was already had my first client. And I left within 4 weeks after that and had 4 clients after that. And it's just been a beautiful climb ever since. It's just been this beautiful experience of learning more about me and who I want to be in the world and helping other people do the same.
Excellent. And so when you left your job in the sports marketing business industry, and you started your first business with your first clients, and they started coming on a steady stream, was your business what it is today? Were you working with people in branding and marketing?
Mm-hmm. It was. So obviously I haven't been doing this for an extended period of time. I've been doing branding for obviously over a decade, but in this capacity of this one-to-one coaching with entrepreneurs, it's only been a bit over a year. But yes, so I've been doing design work with them. I've been doing mentorship and coaching and helping them get to the crux of their soul's calling and helping them then construct brands that help, reflect that and allow them to do that work in the world.
Excellent. And so how did was this part of your out-of-body near-death experience on the operating table, or how did you come from this strong sports marketing background to digging into branding at such a deep level?
Well, I think that was my skill set, right? And so I think that that's something that a lot of folks come to. It's like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. One thing that I've always known I want to do, and what I saw in my vision on that operating room table was myself speaking, sharing my heart's message, which I had been sharing in a personal blog a bit, just writing while I was in sport marketing, but it never felt like I could really share it. And so I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. I am someone who empowers people. I always have. I've always been a leader. And so I knew that this would be a beautiful lens through which to do that work. And I believe so strongly as I've cracked into the work, because it's just this constant learning and unfurling process, right, Holly? It's, we're learning as we go. I don't proclaim to have all the answers, nor will I ever in my life. And I just want to continually be the student of the universe and to continue to learn and to share those lessons with the people that I have the privilege of working with and really holding space for them. So I think the other piece to that is that we do work for our former versions of ourselves. So I am now coaching my former self and the women and some men that are in the place that I was in before.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's the best way I've heard anyone ever express that. I love that. I'm doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And so if you break it down like that, that's one of the things I say to my clients, because they're so overwhelmed. They're like, well, who am I? Right? That question is such a prevalent question. Who am I to do this work that I want to do? Well, who are you not to do this work? Because you've already survived. You've gone through the bog and you've figured out so much information that is now rich and valuable. And you could give this gift to the former version of yourself and to all of these people that would just get through it so much faster, if you could just, get past your own fear to do that.
Yes. Yes. So branding, it can be really, really challenging to the core of who we are and the essence of who we are and answer that question, who am I, so that we can express that in our branding. It can be so hard because so often so many of us are still kind of hiding underneath the masks of our corporate job, our previous businesses, all the stuff that's kind of not really a part of us, but yet it kind of is. Mm-hmm. So how do you help people peel all that stuff off and get to the core of who they really are deep down?
Well, the first step in the process is to give ourselves permission to want what we actually want.
Yes.
And that's a big one. And it should be, let me reframe that. It should be really embarrassing. So when I was sitting in a large meeting room with predominantly men in a corporate collegiate athletic environment, which is all about really promoting men's sports, let's be honest, for revenue, for ticket sales and all of that, right? For me to say, well, I would like to work from home and raise my baby and have soul sisters and women in a tribe where we talk about love and growing into our power and really proclaiming what we want to do from our souls. I mean, now that's pretty embarrassing to stand up in that room and say that, right? Yeah, they're going to laugh me right out of there. So it starts there. It starts with giving yourself permission to want what you want first. Mm-hmm. So it begins there in the branding journey, right? So you do that. And once you get clear on what that information is, it's then taking the baby steps of inspired action to start creating it, to start taking whatever that is. So that might be just doing a little bit of work in that area. If you feel like, well, I'm meant to be a photographer, but I really don't know that much about it, but I really think that this is what I want to do. Well, it means asking some friends if you could take pictures of their kids for free, or, do a portrait session for a girlfriend or something for free. You have to start doing it to really feel it and to see if it's going to stick and if it's going to be something that you could really dig your claws into and grow with. Mm-hmm. So I think that's it. It's about movement. It's about action, and giving it a try before you make these big ultimate decisions and see how that all fits.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Now, once people kind of find their thing and they're doing it and they've got their business and it's, slowly growing, how do you help people, or what's the best way for people to kind of really bring out their personality in their branding on their website? Because so often we have the tendency to dream small, to play small, and just think, oh, well, if I just get a couple of clients a week, it's okay. And not really allow themselves to even get to that big vision of what they really want and express who they really are.
Well, I think it's taking a hard look at all the stories you've told yourself about how it has to look and how it has to go. And we have such brilliant role models in this industry that are doing it in such a powerful and beautiful way. But the truth is, if you boil it down, they're doing it in their way. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why they're so successful. And there's this sort of bridge that we need to kind of get over. And it feels really scary to say, what do you mean I can do it my way? I'm not even sure what that is, because a lot of us spend so much time looking at what everyone else is doing and then putting that through the filter of our brains. And then we say, well, the only way that I'm going to be successful is if I do it the way, that Denise is doing it, or the way that Marie Forleo is doing it, or the way that, Danielle Laporte is doing it. And those are, they are beautiful, amazing role models, but they are doing it their way. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just then sort of detonating that whole bit, because it can be kind of like a bomb if you think about it. And frankly, I have friends who have had launches that were bombs because they tried to do it the way that someone else did it.
Yes.
Instead of doing it in a way that felt good to them. And then it becomes robotic. It becomes kind of, you get stuck. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's not going to resonate with your ideal client.
Yeah. It's like you're following someone else's formula, but it's not quite right for you.
Exactly.
So I absolutely love the work that you do. And I love, how heart-centered and how deep how deeply you work with people to help, get to the core of what their message is. Now, we were talking earlier about self-empowerment through branding. So could you tell us a little bit more about what that means and how women entrepreneurs can benefit from self-empowerment through branding?
Yeah. So I think that it's sort of dovetailing off of what we were just talking about. It's what comes up. So the next sort of step in that process is a client saying, I did this launch and I followed all the steps and it just didn't go right. I wasn't successful and I just don't know what else to do. I feel completely desperate. And then it's asking the question and stopping them. And listen, I'm looking in the mirror while I say this because I've had my own iterations of this, throughout my own entrepreneurial journey of what do I need to work on? What do I need to heal within myself? And the big button that comes up for every single one of us, men and women alike, is worthiness. And our feelings that somehow we're not worthy of our dream. And somehow we're not worthy of the success that we desire and of making the impact that we dream about, that we truly want. And so we put up all of these things to stop us in the process instead of going inward and doing that worthiness, that healing bit, which is that inner work, which is the core of everything. Because when you are fully centered and you feel good about where you are, and this is getting into like the woo realm here a little bit, but the truth of it is when you're in that, you're in your strength, and I'm like, you can't see me right now, but I'm moving my hand kind of up and down, like through my golden center, right? I'm aware of where I am and what my brilliance is and where my light is, and I allow myself to just be there and to share my gifts. It's like the open hand, right? The money can come in, you can give it. When you clench your fist down, the money can't go in or out. It's stuck. And you can't receive any more.
Yeah.
And so it's this opening within yourself and being okay with ourselves and allowing the brand that is us to go out into the world and do its good work.
Yes. I love that. So now how do people, once they've, kind of gone deep and dug deep and looked at all of this stuff that we've just been discussing, how do they translate that into what they need to be telling their web developer or, the person who's going to be doing their logo? How do you translate that into kind of the visual business stuff?
Yeah, and that's the trickiest part, I think, in a lot of ways too. It's that people have, become like this vault of feeling, and then it's like, well, how do I crack that out of myself? And so that's the reason why I started my business, was because I felt like there was a disconnect between a lot of folks. There are some amazing web designers out there naturally, but that sort of like soul space and people going and creating websites just kind of where they were without doing some of that checking in work first, and then being delivered a website that is just sort of a cookie cutter of somebody else's.
Yeah.
And that's really easy to do in this space because there are a lot of really great websites out there. And I ask all of my clients for examples of sites that they love, because that's really helpful information for me to then spin off and kind of figure out how we do theirs. So I think it's about getting really clear with examples, doing a lot of pinning on Pinterest. It's visually matching your feelings for how you want to be represented digitally with how you want to be represented from within your soul, like connecting the two, and then giving to the best of your ability, putting that stuff together and sharing it with the person that's going to work with you, and it's also finding the right fit. I think that's the other piece. It's finding the right fit of someone who's not just going to be this sort of robot designer for you, but is actually interested in asking you bigger questions around like, well, let's talk about what that symbol means, or let's talk about copy and where that fits into this and how we're going to utilize color and size of our text with them. It's like, it's really all the elements because it comes all together in such a beautiful way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that can be really confusing for people who are especially perhaps new to the business world. They're starting their first business and they've never had to think about these things before. It's like, it can feel so like you're so lost because there's all this new language and there's this whole graphic stuff that you have to create. So what are your tips for how people can, as you've said, it's really, really important to get examples to show your graphic designer or your web developer. But how do you recommend that people even kind of approach that? Because, as you said, lots of times people see Marie Forleo, they see Denise Duffield Thomas, and they say, wow, they're fantastic. I like that, but it might not be representing them.
Right, right. So I think that it's a matter of kind of like collecting all of those things and kind of crystallizing it down to the elements that what are they liking about it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's always with anything, when it's like when I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling a certain way, I ask myself why a lot. And it's like what Brene Brown's talking about in Rising Strong, which everyone's reading and talking about right now. It's about getting curious about our feelings and getting curious about our choices. And so it's looking at, Denise Duffield Thomas's site, looking at Nikki Elledge Brown's site, because everybody loves her site as well. And then saying, why do I love this? Is it because I admire her and what she's doing, and I want to do that too? And so I think that the way to do that is to design a site that's just like hers, or is it because, I love this color palette. I love the placement of the imagery. I love the way that her copy really pops out and is intriguing, and it's not so wordy, it's just really visually engaging. So it's like being curious about why it is you like something. It comes all the way down to that, and then taking notes on that, and really seeing what you find. What can you build from that around doing the search on the internet? Because there's so many beautiful examples all over the place, and figuring out what it is that you love and really resonates with you.
Okay, so that's really, really helpful, because there's so many elements, as you said. You're looking at the copy, and copywriting is very, very specific to your own personal style. You can imitate someone else's copywriting, but if it doesn't sound like you, it's just going to be a weird disconnect.
Exactly.
Color is very, very important. Fonts. I see people using all kinds of crazy fonts sometimes that I just think, wow, that was an interesting choice there.
Right.
Images, photography is also really important, and you're a photographer. So obviously we can't go in depth into that, but photography for your website is really, really important. You can just get kind of the head and shoulders shot, or you can get the whole lifestyle shots. How do you work with people in photography, and how do you recommend that they approach perhaps getting a first set of photographs for their business?
Yeah, I think it depends on kind of what their work is. And so, my dear friend Lisa Fraley, who's a legal coach, we just did a shoot down in Boston, which really fits in her brand. And she dressed in a beautiful dress and just in heels, and so she looked business, professional. And so, but I'm not necessarily going to be dressed like that, because that's not really what my brand essence is, right? I'm not a lawyer. And though Lisa is, she's in touch with chakras and all that stuff, she's still a lawyer. And so that's important to her. So I think it's getting clear. And here's a really nice little exercise to do before prepping for a photo shoot that I give to all my clients is put down your power words. Make a list of the words that you want to embody within your brand, and get clear on what those look like. And then from there, you can start to fill in the gaps around, what does wardrobe look like? What does my setting location look like? Am I going to a cafe? Am I just doing it at home? And if you are doing it at home, just declutter, minimize all the background stuff as much as possible. Keep it really simple and clean. Am I outside? Am I at the beach, right? It just depends on what it is your business is, your brand is, and how that aligns with your heart and your soul. And how is that going to translate on the screen to connect with your ideal client.
Yeah, very good. That's excellent. And because I think it can be so challenging for people, again, if you're just getting started, or if you've had photographs before, kind of figuring out how you want to represent yourself to your clients, and how much is too much, how personal should you get, do you really need to be showing your home office, your home, business, that kind of thing, how much to show?
Well, I think it just depends, again, on where you are in your brand, in your business, right? I mean, I'm very transparent about my life, my family, my home. I share stories of my life. So I'm comfortable with that. And that fits for me to share me sitting journaling, because that's something that's really important to my work, and I share that with my clients as well. So I think that's kind of the question you have to ask yourself, and I think it's a really simple gut check. I think it's simply like, okay, how do I feel about having photos in my home office?
Yeah.
And then feel it. And then whatever comes up, then you have your answer.
Yeah. Definitely, I would not want people photographing my home office. I mean, it's really nice, but it's a bit cluttered right now.
Yeah, so there you go, right?
Yeah.
There you go. There's your answer.
Yeah, exactly. So we set out today to talk about how to step into your power through your brand message. And we've talked about so many things, from like the deep inner work to the practical, translating that to your graphic designer and your web developer. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us today about how women entrepreneurs can step into their power through their brand message in their business?
I think that our brands are what we say they are.
Yes. Yes.
Such are our hearts and our soul's desires and all of those things. They are what we say they are. Mm-hmm. And we are our brand, whether we want to be or not, in a lot of ways. And so I really want to be, and I want to make my brand powerful, and I want to share my message of empowerment with other women. And if I leave, this interview with any sentiment giving that to anyone listening here today, it's just that you can do it. Whatever it is that you are dreaming about, that you're too scared to put out in public or to tell your family because they're the people that will think you're the craziest of all, mm-hmm. is that you can do it. And you just have to take one tiny step, but it begins by saying to yourself, I give you permission to want this. Yes. And let's see what's next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important because we place so many limitations on ourselves. And what could happen if we just removed those limitations and, took one or two steps towards what it is that we want? It could be amazing.
And we have so many gifts to share with other people. And your gifts and my gifts are different mm-hmm. gifts, and so many other folks could really benefit from them.
Yes. Excellent. So, Amber, do you have any women business mentors, or are there any women entrepreneurs who inspire you?
Oh, yeah, it's infinite. I mentors, one of my very first mentors who I know has been on the podcast is Zoe Richards, mm-hmm. Success Revolution. And she's a dear friend, and she really believed in me when I needed someone to believe in me. So Zoe Richards. And Kate Northrup is a dear friend, mm-hmm. and she is just she lives her brand, in every possible way around freedom. And she and Mike, I just adore them, and they're good friends. Those two are really close to my heart. I have Emily Ballard, who's a writer, and she's just on this soul's journey, and she just pushes me to continue to unfurl and to ask those hard questions. And she's been with me through it from, those days and months of early motherhood and saying, what am I doing? I know what I need to do, but I want to go do this business, but and she was just, then why don't you just go do it? It was that kind of question. And it was amazing. It was like the simplest question, but it cracked me open, and it gave me the permission slip that I needed to say, okay, giddy up, let's go. And so those are some close friends and personal, mentors. Danielle Laporte's The Desire Map was the sort of my passport to begin my journey truly. And combined with B School, Marie Forleo. So those two gals are blazing the trail in such a beautiful way. And I'm so grateful for their work. Obviously, I mentioned Brene Brown, and I always say her name wrong, but Pema Chodron, like the real Thich Nhat Hanh, like these real philosophy type books, these real heart-centered books, The Course in Miracles. These are the things, Marianne Williamson, works that just help me dig deep to figure out the why stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that I can help my clients do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, because that can be such a hard question to answer because it's so big. Mm-hmm. And we spent so much of our lives kind of doing other things that weren't aligned with that. So it's really helpful to kind of get back to the core of who we are.
Yes. And, one thing I just thought about was when I realized that I was living in someone else's achievement system and not my own, mm-hmm. was a real, open the window moment of oh, okay, right. I don't have to want what these folks want.
Yes.
It's okay to want what I want.
Yes.
And to really just step into that and go there and realize that there are going to be a lot of other people that want that too. And they're going to champion me, and they're going to be there with me, and I'm going to be able to help them in that process too.
Yeah, definitely. So Amber, how can other women entrepreneurs who are listening to this work with you? You've got a couple of different programs. You've got the 5-day Brand You Challenge.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. Okay. So that's the real core. And in that Brand You Challenge, you're going to work. It's going to ask you some deep questions, but it's going to help you get in touch with your why, mm-hmm. so that you can give yourself that permission slip and start taking inspired action. So that is my freebie on my website. So hop on over at amberlilyestrom.com to grab that. And then the other two options are I have a little offering called Brand Love Studio, and I work with a few other soul sisters, and we help design brands for entrepreneurs, and we do one-to-one intensive work. And it's like a one-stop shop. So you come over there and we'll help you do the whole thing. So that's a lot of fun. It's really an intimate and beautiful experience. And then my baby is in the name, I love it. It's the Brand Love Bestie Tribe. And it's fun. It's really in alignment with my spirit. And I call myself the branding and biz BFF. And the whole notion behind it is year-long branding and business coaching and life and soul coaching, because that's what's going on over there. It's a membership group, and I am just, it's my whole heart and soul. And many of my program launching Brand You grads have moved into that space, and a lot of my one-to-one clients and a lot of people from my Live Your Freedom Mastermind free Facebook group are in there. And it's beautiful. And there's monthly calls with me and other experts. There's monthly trainings. There's daily coaching. Whatever you need, you get it. And that, I just really wanted to create an affordable solution for people to come and get what they need, because there are good days and there are bad days.
Yes. And,
you work with someone for 6 weeks, and then those 6 weeks end, and then you're sitting there saying, well, I really still need help, and I don't feel empowered. I feel a little bit desperate, and I don't know where to go. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to create a really safe space where I could do that work with women. And so that is my Brand Love Bestie Tribe. And you can just click on join the tribe on my site and learn more about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
so
thank
where
you.
can people find you online? I know you mentioned your website a couple of minutes ago, but where else are you on social media?
I'm on all the social media platforms. So obviously Facebook, obviously Twitter. I'm big into Periscope. I Periscope pretty much every day.
Wow.
Just a quick little, I'm a quickie on Periscope, but it's a great, for those of you guys that are on the fence about Periscope, it's a great little training opportunity to work on your speaking and to get really good at doing videos and talks and content. So I highly recommend Periscope. It's a beautiful little space. Instagram, I'm a photographer, so I'm over there. And Twitter, obviously, of course.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Holly. This has been great.
Yeah, it's been great having you. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit readytobloom.com/120 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's guests, including links for topics that were discussed at readytobloom.com. That's ready, 2, bloom.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you so much.